Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's your girl Dosecity. I'm back with another video. If you want to get hot, come roll with me. Now, listen, man. Your boy Joe Budden is not accepted as a black intellectual. Now, I wanna say that to say this. What's a black intellectual, right? A black intellectual, and I'm gonna put up the definition for you. People now, black intellectual, race or responsibility in American life, right? Contributions of black intellectuals have been significant in shaping American life and society. They have challenged and expanded the boundaries of knowledge and understanding, often addressing issues of race, gender, and social justice. Their work has been influential in various fields, including philosophy, sociology, and the arts, and has helped to create more inclusive and equitable society, right? So this conversation came up because Mark Lamont Hill and Queens Flip, for better word, showed their ass on the Joe Budden podcast. Now, you guys know we did a video on that, right? So there's this conversation on why is Mark Lamont Hill on the Joe Budden podcast, right? Now,
why I thought I wanted to get my co-host perspectives on this. There seems to be the death of black intellectualism, particularly when it comes to who has a microphone. And viral clips like this take up so much space. To me, it was clear that his co-host felt small. And, you know, even him saying you use tricky words and Mark responding with, I use words that are tricky to you. And anytime somebody I think cannot take to be questioned or responds with a full temper tantrum, it is always about that other person, not about, like, it wasn't Mark, he didn't do anything. And if someone is so small that you can't articulate your point without throwing a temper tantrum or insulting another person, I'm happy that Mark showed both sides, that yes, I'm an intellectual, but don't get up in the studio, you know? And I think it's important for people to see that yes, you can still be an intellectual and demand your respect. That doesn't make you soft.
I will be very honest. I've never listened to the Joe Budden podcast before. This was the first clip I've ever seen of it is with Mark on it, and that probably distances me even greater from a lot of folks out there who probably, you know, it's a number 5 or top 5 or top 10 for a reason. That means people are going there to subscribe. The reason why I think I value a voice like Mark's being able to cut through in a top 10, top 5 audience is that at least somebody gets an exposure to his perspective that may not have otherwise had it. But exactly what they're getting exposed to also matters. I don't know if that's the rhythm of it from day to day or whatever's broadcast, week to week, whenever it shows. But I've got to believe that, knowing Mark well enough, that on a regular basis, he's probably being able to enter into that conversation, that discussion, a higher level of discourse than what we saw exhibited there. Maybe he's entering into that conversation some terms, some theory of changes, some beliefs that then people go and Google afterwards that they didn't know before, and now their curiosity has been piqued and they're going to check it out. And to that extent,
Native Land Podcast, as you've seen so far, you know, have been giving Mark Lamont a high five for standing up for himself. And the main person who kind of put things into perspective was the lady by the name of Angela Rye. Now, I feel like the rest of them was also saying things, but I think Angela Rye, being the most popular, you know, have the most notoriety in the group, you know, to the public, everybody's taking what she said more to the heart. Not everybody. Let's just say Joe Budden fans. Let's get.
We can lovingly challenge people to rise up without calling them dumb. Or anti-intellectual. Sure, that is where we are, but is there another way to call people in? I don't think that Mark should be left holding the bag in this exchange. I take great issue with that podcast and its treatment of Mark, and I was wondering when he was gonna snap. You know, there's another clip that I don't know if you all saw, where Mark announces very vulnerably that he's lost almost all of his colleagues that were reporting in Gaza, and by lost I mean they are killed. They died. In their reporting and trying to be courageous for their people.
And then around the world, we're seeing violence everywhere, including Gaza, where I work for Al Jazeera. My colleagues, every colleague I have in Gaza has been murdered. Every single colleague I have in Gaza has been murdered. So we got a lot of work to do and a lot of stuff to pay attention to.
That's pretty good.
All right, Young Thug just I get scared every time you do that shit.
He doing so fast. So you gotta
everybody knowing Gaza is like,
oh my colleague.
God damn, he doing it again. That nigga Mark, boy. Why you don't ever support him when you start talking that shit? You support him very well, Pizza.
He has my full support, but I also know that once he says something like that, or we discuss something like that, then we're just like, okay, what's the fucking pivot? What's the pivot after we talk about every journalist on the Gaza Strip being murdered? See, there we go.
Appeared on Little Baby's project.
Quite the project.
Sharing vulnerably, he's lost all his people. And Joe Budden's transition, not this other guy, I don't know everybody's name, but not this other guy. Joe Budden's transition is like, and Young Thug. Like, just no mention of like, are you okay?
Yeah.
How do you feel? Who was lost this week? How did they die? Just like nothing. So 2 tips point around curiosity. If you can't find curiosity, find sympathy. If you can't find sympathy, find empathy. If you can't find empathy, find compassion. Because if you don't, the person who is in a constant state of grief, at some point that grief turns to rage because there's not a safe container for it. So we say on this show, welcome home, and we mean that. Of course, Mark is welcome anytime. I don't know about the rest of them. But I will just say, I don't think that means that we should be foreclosed to having discussions that are tough or where we don't think people are our peers or we're on the same level. I'm not into that. But where I see folks who are constantly unwilling to have conversations that stretch or to have conversations where they at least can appreciate a different perspective, I don't know that I'm into that. So I just want Mark to know I'm praying for you, brother. You know that. And I want better for him. I think that he deserves to hold space with people who are at least more compassionate and more eager to learn from his perspective. And clearly, you can take a Negro out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the Negro. So you might not want to keep leaping at Mark. You might just snap and bust your ass next time. I don't know. I don't want him to do that. But I mean, it was getting Real Housewives to me. I'm the first to call myself sophisticated all day long. Well, in the exchange. And I can't tell you all how much I cringe looking at that exchange. I have been in conversation, in relationship with people that take you completely off of your square and who you are, who you have evolved out of. And I think for me, what's frustrating, and this is something that I would tell our friend as well, is I never want anybody to take any of us off of our square, but particularly not him. He just has so much to the world now, so much to add to the world. Now I'll say, I'm the first to call myself sophisticated all day long, all day long. I believe in, both sides. Like, you might, depending on the mood, you might, if I'm feeling froggy, I might leave. But what I don't like is I know firsthand that the founder of Uncle Bobby's, that's striving to ensure that Black folks can read in a neighborhood that he loves in Philly, the same person that's creating Black jobs and providing opportunity for our folks, doesn't want to show up that way for himself, for his family, for his kids, for anybody. And so what I really want to ask us to consider is, how do we resolve conflict when things are heated without name calling, without attacking someone's intellect or lack thereof? I think that.
So watching those clips, I can see there's an undertone of feeling like Mark Lamont is way more superior intellectually than the people on the couch. And that's kind of why they felt like, yo, why is he even on this podcast, right? I do agree with the aspect of Joe was very insensitive in the way he covered that conversation when it came down to the Gaza situation, right? And I cannot shoot Joe Budden all of the bail, because he has a responsibility of having as one of the most successful urban podcasts in the world, right? So you are someone who people are listening to. So when you joke about things like that, it just kind of shows that, you don't find it as important as you might find a music topic or something about, Shaniqua and her baby mama, situation. So I'm just saying, this is how they probably feeling. That's how they probably feeling. I'm just So Joe Budden responded in Joe Budden fashion. Check this out.
You quote unquote intellectuals seem to be pulling a lot from places that, again, like it said, you admittedly know very little about. It just comes off a way.
Yeah,
it comes off a way.
It's like if you put,
especially when you pretending to do all of this super Black kumbaya shit. I got a problem with that too. I got a problem with the people that masquerade as kumbaya, super Black, all for the people, and I'll be the first one to tell you how we're different. I come on here every week and say we're less different than we are alike. We just got different ideologies. But I'm not going to keep listening to people who, in 25 years, I've never said the name Angela Rye. Talk about nothing y'all talking about over there. I'm saying that respectfully. I don't come on here and say a word about any of that shit. I expect reciprocity. You could have titled that clip totally different.
That's true.
Don't claim to be super pro-Black and then take the #1 Black urban podcast and put that type of stink on it because you think you got a friend over here. That don't give you a license.
I don't think it's that. I don't think if Mark was here or not. I think
if Mark was here, they would never have those conversations.
No,
they're having those conversations because their friend is up here.
No, they're having those conversations because Mark is deemed an academic and an intellectual, which you
well,
are.
He is, not deemed,
No,
he is.
I said what you are. So now it's, yo, why is he even there? Like Angela Yee said, yo, Mark, just come home.
Angela Rye.
Angela Rye said, Mark, just come home.
That's the other beef.
But then you go on to say how diverse Mark is. So I think that that's an insult because you don't put Mark in a box. Mark is home. Mark is a Black man sitting in a room with Black men that grew up in similar circumstances, albeit we wasn't all in the cold.
I'm going to conclude this video with some dosology, right? There is a certain part of the Black community who judge the other side, right? Like the Harvard, the Howard, the Princeton graduate, the NYU graduates, right? The ones who went on to be like philosophers and, you know what I mean, doctors, and they look at someone like a Joe Budden, someone who, dropped out of high school, ended up getting his GED, had a fairly successful rap career, right? Then he decided to do podcasting, right? He's like one of the first ones to start podcasting. Right now, he's known as the Podfather. And when they look at him next to a Mark Lamont Hill, they probably look at Mark Lamont Hill as somebody who's actually way more successful than Joe Budden, right? There's a lot of judgment when it comes down to just where Joe Budden is from, the underdog story. There's a lot of judgment. I can hear it in just the verbiage, and even the guy saying, I've never watched a Joe Budden pod until Mark Lamont Hill was on it, right? So that's honest, what I'm gonna say. The other part is, I hope that Joe Budden apologized to Mark about that situation, because that was very much crazy. Now, for people who aren't really tuned into the Joe Budden podcast and they're judging the podcast just based on clips, that's where we go wrong, right? The first guy said, yo, I never even watched the podcast. Like, I just seen, this is my first clip ever seeing the Joe Budden podcast, right? So already I can tell you already are gonna speak from a place of unknowing, right? You're speaking from a place of subjectiveness, right? It's not really a place that you really know what's going on. You don't really have the full facts on what kind of podcast this is. You don't even know if there's other people who got Harvard degrees, Howard degrees, that's up there, that's, that have the same type of mindset that can debate with a Mark Lamont Hill. You guys are looking at everybody on that podcast as if they're not black intellectuals, right? There's also this conversation about when you're in the field and you see somebody that's just sitting on the couch talking about, or just kind of pushing something to the side that they're not in the field for, there is this sort of anger, this sort of unintentional rage, right? Where it's like, you're not like super mad, but you're like, yo, you're not in the field, bro. Like, you're not in the field. You don't understand what's going on over there, right? Like, it's like keyboard gangsters versus somebody who went to prison 25 times. You know what I'm saying? And the state and the cops and the judge, they just keep letting them out. Okay? And it's kind of like that kind of energy that I was getting from Angela Rye and their folks. You know what I'm saying? I could see that part of it where it's like, yo, Joe Budden, like, you're not out here with us, like, doing this work, and for you to just not even give the platform as a brother, that is not okay. And I think that's a part of it as well. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? I see both ways, you know what I'm saying? I have no dog in this race, to be honest, you know what I mean? Except for that one right there. All right, let's go.